Could a former stud wideout be making his return to fantasy rosters this year? What should you be doing with Arizona running backs and drafts right now? And who will this year's Lamar Jackson be in the FFPC in 2020? Plus, career $100,000 high-stakes fantasy football winner Brian Harris is going to join us to talk about his best ball drafts, how they've been going so far this season, what his thoughts on Evan Ingram's slow surgical recovery are, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerczak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Everybody, if you got what it takes, because I'm KRS and I'm on the mic.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerczak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerczak.
With the master rhymer, that's the lead behind the video rapper. You know the top rhymer, tapper.
Thank you so much, Rob. Happy Combine Weekend, everybody. Greetings, salutations to all the Balkaholics and Gerzakinetics. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerczak. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to discuss some of the surprising 40-yard dash times from the future rookie receivers and maybe some running backs at the NFL Combine, whether Kyler Murray is being overdrafted right now, and career $100,000 winner Brian Harris is going to hop onto the show to talk about his 2020 FFPC best balls, stacking the Rams wideouts in that format, and much, much more. Shout out to the chat room right now. We got a lively bunch in there right now. Feel free to post any questions you might have in there if you want to connect with us on Twitter. The show is at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman. Dave is at David Gerczak. Brian is at Brian_Harris_. Facebook.com/HSFF Hour is where to reach us. 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, get them in now. We'll try to get to all of them, all of those, all the tweets, all the emails, and fantasy feedback coming up later on in the show. Dave, it was Combine Weekend, and it's weird because, you know, we saw the receivers and tight ends work out yesterday. Today we saw the running backs. So now when everybody has a chance to watch the Combine on television on Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be the big uglies and the defenders, not usually the most enthralling thing to watch.
Yeah, I didn't really adjust properly to it, Balky, so I'm a little behind. I feel like I will catch up. They're going to replay a lot of stuff over the weekend.
Right.
But yeah, I used to really enjoy, kind of pissing away this Saturday and Sunday watching the stuff all day, and now I might actually have to hang out with the family.
Yeah, listen, I know that feeling. Two-Packer chiming in, saying that he doesn't like the new Combine schedule. He says it sucks. He misses everything. They changed a lot of the drills this year, too. I don't know if you noticed that, but they threw out a lot of stuff, and they added some new drills as well. If you don't want to spend time with your family, hang out with me tomorrow night.
Oh, why?
We're going to go.
Let me guess. Is alcohol involved?
Yes.
All right, anyway.
The Scuba Skin Diver Fantasy Football League party is tomorrow. You are more than welcome.
Are you in the league?
No, I'm not in the league. I just like the guys who are in it. It's going to be a good time. Talk fantasy football, talk football in general. You are cordially invited.
Do I know anyone?
Leo will be there.
So I'd be a friend of a friend coming to a fantasy.
Well, here's the thing.
Is that a bar, I assume? Or no?
Where it's at several bars, actually.
Okay. Right.
There's 12 guys in the league. I probably know about half the league. The other half I don't know. So
maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, let me know.
Two-Packer is interested, it sounds like.
All right. Two-Packer, we're starting at Scuba's at 4 tomorrow. So you meet us there, and you can ride with me, my friend.
There is my diet if I actually go out.
Main Event Early Bird is live, Dave. We just announced that this past week. $500,000 grand prize, a $100,000 runner-up prize. Not too often where you can lose and take home $100,000.
That is nice. I'm really happy we got to the $100K on second place because it now competes with some of the grand prizes of other national contests, and that's great. So now you can take first or second and really be, six figures taking it home.
And not only that, almost $1 million added to the prize pool in the main event this year. And remember to sign up now. That main event early bird is going on, I believe, until June 1st, I want to say. And you can save $100 off your first team, $400 off each additional team at the regular price as well. Whether you're drafting in Vegas or drafting online, it is going to be a hoot, as the kids say. Best Ball Slim Leagues got launched, I think it was late last week. We talked very briefly about it on the show. To give you an idea that it is an 18-round draft. It is no kickers, no defenses. If you were ever drafting with Draft previously, you might be familiar with this format. So give those a check out. I know Darren Armani at Fantasy Mojo, who will quote a lot of the stats on tonight as far as how the drafts are going. He just posted the results of the first completed Best Ball Slam at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter. Check out his website, fantasymojo.com. Dynasty Orphan's still available. I noticed they're dwindling, Dave. There's not nearly as many as there was available earlier, like maybe a month ago.
Yeah, we're down to like, I don't know, 15 or 16, although there may be a few that get thrown up there as if people don't renew at the end of their, the time,
right.
Which is tomorrow night. But yeah, the price. I mean, the thing is, as fewer are there, the prices get better and better. So I mean, really,
I saw some $1 ones on there.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to pay the deposit, but I mean, there's some deals. Good players on a lot of these teams.
I think Davis Maddock picked up an FFPC Dynasty League, and it was not in great shape. And I think he's planning on chronicling the trials and tribulations of this year of trying to bring that back to competitiveness, I don't think is a word. That's what I was going to say.
It's not a word?
I don't know.
Not competitiveness. Seems like
a competitive level. And so it can be done. I've seen it done. I've seen a lot of rescue jobs done in this format before. Best Ball Leagues, of course, open. And check out the High Stakes Lowdown next week. We're going to have 2014 Football Guys Players Championship winner Jim Seipel is going to join me on that show. We're going to talk about some of the best ball leagues that he's been in so far this year. So that will be dropping Thursday morning. Anything else to report, or can we get into the fantasy stuff?
Please, let's move on.
All right. Football Guys, Roto and Rob, responsible for tonight's rundown. Chicago Sun-Times' Jason Leiser, not sure how to pronounce it, reports that the Bears are planning on pursuing Austin Hooper. Dave, he is 26 years old, had 75, 787, and 6 as far as his line last year. Expect to get $10 to $12 million annually on the open market, and they only have $26 million in cap space due to the Bears. Obviously, Trey Burton has been a letdown. Adam Shaheen has not lived up to what they thought he was going to do, and he's been battered.
That's predicted with Trey Burton by us, by the way.
Oh, did we say that?
Well, I know I did, but you may or may not have said it at some point.
I got him as my third tight end in a dynasty league. That's the only league I owned him in. So I guess for them, there was
a guy who got a big contract and never performed at all anywhere else, and didn't perform in the future. So
he performed in a small sample size in Philly.
Yeah, very small.
Very small sample
size. It was not
size.
a good. I mean, that year still was not that great. I remember us talking about it. Anyway.
Ryan Pace, who's the GM of the Bears, actually was high on Austin Hooper. He went with Jonathan Bullard instead, and who the Bears actually cut. So you're looking, and by the way, I just saw Rob Demoski right before we came on the show tonight.
I heard that too.
Packers reporter saying that Hooper, or the Packers are expected to be involved in Austin Hooper as well. So regardless of where he goes, Dave, let's frame it like this. Let's talk about this because we don't know where he is going to be. Right now he is going as tight end 6 at the 501. Not knowing where he's going to be, would you be okay taking him there, given that whoever signs him is going to use him, or does that seem a little too high?
It seems kind of okay. I mean, because, his stats last year, I mean, I don't know that there's a ton of upside to that, but the tight end position, it's tough. I mean, he could get more touchdowns. I mean, Atlanta just didn't really hit him that much in the red zone. They started throwing to Julio in the red zone, oddly, later in the year.
Yeah, who saw that coming?
After all the complaints.
Well, and Calvin Ridley was there, too. And
Ridley gets touchdowns like crazy.
And look what Hooper still put up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just...
You have to be in a good offense. So Atlanta's a good offense. Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. So you have to get that. And I would expect him to want to go to a contending type-ish team, of which the Packers would be one. The Bears could be, I guess. So
NFC North's pretty good. There's 4 tight ends going in the 5th round right now in FFPC best balls. Hooper leads the way. Would you do a quick would you rather here? Would you rather have Austin Hooper or Evan Engram?
I think I'd rather have Hooper. Ingram is like, isn't he?
We're going to get into Ingram in a little
All right,
bit. I
yeah.
agree with you there. We'll tell the listeners why shortly. Here's an interesting one. Austin Hooper or Tyler Higbee?
Man, I'll take Hooper. Higbee's got those other 3 receivers to contend with.
If they keep Cooks.
And Everett still.
Right.
And he had a really small sample size too. But that's a tough one because he really did look super good.
Off the end of last season,
he
was just crushing it.
He really was. I mean, I don't know. I can go back and forth on that one. I'm gonna have to give that a kind of a push.
How many guests? I would lean. It's very close for me. I would lean Hooper as well. How many guests did we have on after the season ended, where we're talking about, hey, what was your lineup like? Who did you have?
It seems like all the champs.
Higbee was like the second flex. You know, they had like Waller or some other tight, or Kelsey or somebody, and then Higbee was the second flex. And then the other one, another free agent, unrestricted free agent. We know where he's going this year. Hunter Henry.
Yeah, I like Henry's. I like his skill set.
You like Henry over Hooper?
I do, actually. I like Henry's skill set. I know he's had some injury issues, but for some reason I just think Henry's is going to be better.
I still would say Hooper, but it is close for me as well. Two-Packer chiming in. Tyler Higbee was given a sheeple ranking when they came out on January 17th.
So now remind me, is sheeple bad or is it good? Is it
Sheeple is bad.
So non-sheeple is good, and sheeple means
right, but there's not sheeple. There's 4 S's, and he's going to put them in the chat here shortly. I always forget them. There's like sheeple, sexy, and then I can't remember the other 2. Like stupid might have been one of them. I can't remember. He'll post them in there. Two-Packer will post them in there shortly.
Oh, great.
And we'll find out
Wonderful.
what it is. All right, let's move on. Blast from the past here, Dave.
I do like the rankings idea there.
Yeah, I do too. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones says he has thought about re-signing Dez Bryant. Quote, I've thought a lot about it in the shower. Not sure what to make of that. Dallas Morning News' Michael Gelkin took it as a serious statement, and the Cowboys have not dismissed the prospect out of hand. He is 31 years old. He did not play last year after he blew out his Achilles at the end of 2018 with the Saints. Now, this is interesting because you have Michael Gallup as the up-and-comer there in Dallas. Amari Cooper is a free agent. I guess question one, do you expect the Cowboys to get things done with Amari Cooper?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and Cooper right now, people are paying a premium for him. He's, well, maybe not a premium, actually. He's going at wide receiver 11 at the 310 right now, right behind DJ Moore and Odell Beckham, but ahead of Allen Robinson and Juju Smith-Schuster. I guess I can get on board with that. That seems about right. I don't think that's I guess I would take Cooper probably over Beckham at this point. I don't think I could make a good case for taking Beckham over him.
Yeah, I mean, if Beckham's healthy and Baker's getting better, I guess you could make the argument that Cooper could go to a bad team. But there's some downside and upside to both of them.
Speaking of downside, you're in a 28-round best ball with the FFPC. Dez Bryant's still out there. Can you make a case for drafting him?
Sure, 28th round. You
really? You would?
You can make a case for anybody.
I still don't think I would. I'd take some. This is such a young man's game, and I'd be taking a rookie flyer at that point. By the way, it's Sheeple, Sexy, Stone, and Sure are the 4 levels.
So I thought Sheeple is bad.
Sheeple is bad.
So what's good?
I don't think he put him in order. Sexy is good.
Who doesn't put him in order?
Sexy is good. Stone is bad, and Sure is like, okay, I'll take, as he put it, late round flyer with upside or Sure. It's
what's
okay.
What's worse, Sheeple or Stone?
I don't know. I would assume Sheeple's probably
your
worse.
rankings are ridiculous. Put them in order or something.
I think Sheeple's the worst, and then it's Stone, and then it's Sure, and then it's Sexy. I think that's how it goes.
Sheesh.
Nice. All right, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, you're going to ask me a question about, I said Dez Bryant in the 28th.
There's some kicker, his name is Blanken something or other.
Okay. Oh, Rod Blankenship.
Yeah.
No, that's
Would
nice.
you take Rod Blankenship over Dez Bryant in the 28th round?
I don't think that's his name.
Well, it's
Blankenship.
Who gives a
how many kickers do I have at this
You have 3.
point?
He's your 4th guy, but he's going to get drafted. He's like the only guy getting drafted.
I would take Dez Bryant then. Rodrigo. So it was Rod. Rodrigo Blankenship.
Whatever.
Have you seen this guy, Dave? He wears these real thick glasses when he kicks.
I didn't see that part. But
he's got a leg.
I'm sure he does. That's cool.
He's got what he lacks in eyesight. He has in leg.
Why is he wearing thick glasses?
I think because his eyesight's bad.
Blue blockers, or maybe he's just trying to look cool?
No, they're clear. Like they're like rec specs almost. He wears them under his helmet.
Protecting against like the coronavirus because you can get the eye infection.
That's fine.
You can put the pad on the face and you got to get the eye shields too.
He's worn them for years though. That's my point.
Well, maybe just the regular flu.
Maybe the flu. It's fighting off the flu. Hey, we got Brian Harris coming up here in just 1 minute. I want to get to one other quick thing. Yeah, let's just do one of these. Henry Ruggs, Alabama wide receiver, ran the 40 in 4.27 seconds at the scouting combine, according to Adam Schefter on Twitter. Ruggs, obviously, everybody is seeing if he could break John Ross's record. He came 0.05 seconds short of that. 5'11", 188, and ran a sub 430 40, which is obviously really good. Dave, this is a guy that is being talked about as a top 3 receiver in the draft. Here's my problem. And Jared Smola was actually talking on Twitter about this. He kind of got called out for it.
I'm glad to hear this.
I'm a little nervous, and Smola said, besides speed, he doesn't know what Henry Ruggs does well. And then, people chimed in on that or whatever. I'm not with him that I don't think he does anything well. This is a guy I actually paid attention to a lot because he was originally committed to Florida State, and then he eschewed them for Alabama, which was really frustrating. Certainly the better decision for him. But I always get nervous because certainly there are guys who have speed as a great value, great asset, and they turn out to be great pros. But I guess I'm a little bit nervous about a guy whose main quality is speed, and you're talking about taking him within the top 15 picks of the draft. I don't know if you've followed Henry Ruggs or know a whole lot about him right now, but just sort of that philosophy of a guy who's, he's really, really fast. Well, that doesn't always work out in the NFL if that's the one thing you do really good.
Yeah, his production seems to be lacking. I don't have the rest of the team stats, but if I had to guess, I'm looking at market shares that are just probably well below where we'd be looking at players. And when you're really hyping them up, you want a high market share, and it just doesn't seem to me. 741 yards receiving in 2018, 746 in 2019, on only 46 and 40 receptions respectively. Those numbers, unless they only threw for like 2,000, 2,100 yards, and Alabama did not. Yeah. So I think that those numbers just aren't good enough.
Now, what if I told you that the 2 other guys that he played that were with him on that team at wideout was Jerry Jeudy, who's going to be a top 10, maybe a top 5 overall pick, and Devontae Robinson, who stayed he came back for another year at Alabama, but who many people thought would be a first-round pick this year. They could have had 3 first-round receivers. Does that give you a little bit more?
A little bit, but when you had Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, they both produced quite well, and that wasn't an issue with those guys at LSU. But nevertheless, it is true. When you have so many stars like that team does, it does limit your prospects sometimes.
It does, and we'll
maybe the team just sent them on bombs all the time.
I'm sure they did. Yeah. Well, what they did really well is he's got. Well,
I'm sure the running backs were great too, of course.
Right. Everybody was great. Everybody was great. We'll get into that as we get our dynasty analysis going on. I want to get some best ball analysis and bring in tonight's guest. He's won more than $100,000 lifetime and season-long fantasy football prizes, including finishing 3rd this past year and 12th in 2018 overall in national main event competitions. He is a self-proclaimed FFPC best ball addict and runs the Paper Champs High Stakes franchise. Please welcome into the show Mr. Brian Harris. Brian, welcome into the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, man.
Hi, how's it going, guys?
It
awesome.
is going. It's going very good. Yes, you're coming through great. Brian, do you watch the scouting combine at all very much?
I have in the past, and I overwhelm myself with that stuff sometimes. So this year, I said I'm not going to dive into it as much as I have in the past, just to give myself a little bit of a break. I'll definitely analyze everything as it gets closer to the draft and see where people go.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. It's too much information. I get overwhelmed by it too. It's information overload. Speaking of which, before we get to fantasy football information overload, Brian, can you tell the listeners what you do for a living when you're not winning hundreds of thousands of dollars with the FFPC?
Well, I'm a business owner of a few different businesses, and the main one that I have is it's a temporary staffing agency. We have around 400 employees or so. So I'm pretty busy with those things. Also have a franchise of a United Check Cashing, if you've ever heard of that or not. But it's a check cashing franchise. It's just a bunch of business type stuff. That's all. Nothing too crazy.
So you're hustling in business and you're hustling in fantasy football. God bless.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So hey, so far, Brian, you've drafted 9 teams this season. Is there anything that stood out to you? You know, Bulky and I, we don't know what we're doing, so we always like to get advice from people like yourself who are actually playing to help us in the future.
I think some of the things that stand out for me really just are like, you know, the Lamar Jackson hype train. You know, him going, you know, in the first and second rounds, and you know, obviously with the history behind, you know, the big season quarterback in the follow-up season usually not being as good. I'm you know, I could see where people are taking them there, but I just couldn't do it. And you know, the temptation's there, but taking a quarterback that early in these drafts just eats away at the strength of your team's core position. So, especially in basketball, I've also seen way too many rookies, I think, in my opinion, going early right now.
Yeah, people are taking flyers on all those rookies, huh?
Brian, do you, because you've done a ton of best balls over the years, typically do you normally see that at the time of year where the rookies are going way too high, or does this year it seem like they're going even higher?
Maybe I'm putting more of an emphasis on me not trying to do that, so maybe that's why it's noticeable to me, and I probably have done that in the past, but every year I just keep trying to work at trying to get better, and I know that taking some of these rookies early right now, I should say, is probably, you know, it's a gamble. So I'm trying to get less riskier here as I get older.
So
you're maturing.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no, that's what it's all about. Take less risks and
we all got to grow up sometime.
That's right.
We'll get there eventually.
Yes. Brian, so we know that you're not going as crazy for rookies as maybe some of your other fellow drafters. Are you taking that same approach? You know, we were talking about guys like Austin Hooper earlier, where we don't know where they're going to end up. Do you take the same approach with free agents? Because with these guys, you kind of know what they can do, but you don't necessarily know what their new role, their new offense, their new coaches are going to be doing. So do you fade free agents a little bit too?
Well, right now, I don't necessarily fade the free agents, but I kind of I don't target or hone in on certain players right now. I'll kind of just mix them up a little bit right now until I get a more definitive thing of what's going to happen and how things shake out after free agency and the NFL draft, when I really start to try to target on specific players that I want. Right now, I will shuffle them. I'll play the game, but I will tend to take people that are free agents with a background history right now over those rookies.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, I mean, they're proven players. And speaking of proven players, you took David Johnson at 701 in a recent best ball draft. And the team actually, there was some rumor for a short while about him possibly becoming a free agent if they were going to let him go or not. But
he still could become.
Yeah, it could happen, right?
Yeah.
So do you have any opinion on how that situation resolves itself in Arizona? Maybe he does get cut or traded.
And Kenyon Drake's a free agent there too, as well.
Yeah, or they could draft one of these running backs.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I mean that might have been a round or two early for him right now in that 7th round. Considering where he's going, and considering what is known. But I knew that the quarterback runs in ball drafts right now typically start going around 8 and 9. So I felt that I needed a running back in that spot. So I took a share of him there as my 3rd running back. I figured that his contract does present a tough situation, for the Cardinals. They'd obviously like to re-sign Drake, as he definitely gained favorability there. It seems to fit what they're trying to do, but I'm not sure that having that much money tied up at running back between him and Johnson is going to be possible. So something's got to give there. So either Drake signs elsewhere and Johnson becomes the de facto starter again with Chase Edmonds in the mix, or somehow, some way Johnson gets out of Arizona and has a whole new amount of fantasy opportunity and a much more appealing situation. And if that happens, he could potentially shoot back up, like probably into a couple earlier rounds, I'm sure. But so yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was overall too much of a risk there, considering I think I already had McCaffrey or something in that draft. So I'm just trying to really fill that 2nd running back spot up.
Well, if you already got McCaffrey at the 101, man, you just got to take picks like Johnson to give everybody else a chance, right? I mean, at that point, it's you got to be fair. Keep it fair, which you did. So congratulations on that. We're talking with Brian Harris here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, a career winner of over $100,000 in best ball competitions, fantasy football high stakes competitions as well, talking about some of the issues that are facing the early drafters like Brian in FFPC best balls right now. Evan Engram, let's talk about him a little bit here, because there is a report that he obviously had his Lisfranc surgery a little over 2 months ago. He's still reportedly in a walking boot. Is it too early to start pushing him down draft boards this season? And to give you a little bit of an idea, well, you kind of know where he's going. You've done a lot of drafts already. I mentioned earlier in the show, 504, right between Hooper and Tyler Higbee right now. That's where Evan Engram is going. Do you think that he should be going a little bit further down given his health issues right now?
I think I may have taken him once or twice so far, but this obviously wasn't, best ball in January, February. But now that those reports, are that he's still in a walking boot, it doesn't sound real promising, and he'll definitely be a fade for me going forward until I know a little bit more. I mean, one thing I learned over the years in fantasy is that where there's smoke, there's fire. So when you see these reports like that just come out somewhere that he's not on schedule, not on track. I mean, you can't just put the blinders on. I think he'll be back at a certain time, or these Lisfranc injuries, they're pretty lengthy recovery periods. So I'll definitely, I'll push him down and definitely or avoid him altogether right now until later on, until I see if he actually starts practicing in training camp or anything like that. If he doesn't do anything, I probably might not even touch him the rest of the way. It depends though.
He's off my board, Balky.
He's off seriously, or are you just saying that?
I'm saying it unless my board goes to the 8th or 9th round.
Well, exactly, and I just
sort of off my board.
There's so many other tight ends that I like better there. Like I'd rather have Hooper, I'd rather have Higbee, Hunter Henry. Now you're getting in after that. It's like Jared Cook, Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant. Who'd you rather have, Noah Fant or Evan Engram, Dave?
Well, at this moment it's kind of close. I might take Fant actually. Again, like Brian said, I don't like taking injured guys at all.
Brian, would you take Fant over Engram right now?
That's a tough call. That is a tough call. I'll tell you what I would. There's a tier of tight ends that always come out of I can't say like out of the woodwork, but for example, last year you had the Mark Andrews and the Darren Wallers that you could get a little later in that mix, and the year before that it was Kittle. So Fant could be one of those type of guys, but probably even more so maybe Gesicki or Ian Thomas as well, and just kind of skip the tight end there once you get to that tier and try to take one of those guys maybe a couple rounds after that.
Yeah, and Jared Cook was coming on. I mean, you didn't mention him, Balky, but Jared Cook was coming on really well with the Saints later in the season.
Yeah, he was, indeed. And he gets Drew Brees back for a full year, too.
That's right. Luckily or unluckily for the Rams receivers, they get Jared Goff again. So you have Cooper.
That's lucky, right?
Whatever. Well, they have the same coach with the uninnovative offense. But Cooper
Kupp,
boy. Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, possibly not. We don't know what his story is. Maybe he'll be on to his 12th team in 6 seasons or whatever. Do you think it's a winning strategy, though, to stack the Rams receivers in best ball leagues?
I think I've taken Kupp and Cooks together, but I absolutely love Cooks this year, or not Cooks, Cooper Kupp this year. Another year off that ACL. I just really like his game. I think that he's going to even take another step. I wouldn't say necessarily, stacking Rams wide receiver right now is something I'm looking to do, but I do love Cook, and then Brandon Cook seems to be going at such a good value right now in best ball that it's hard not to take him, without hesitation in rounds 11 or whatever it is right now, whatever his ADP is. But so I'll pretty much take him every time that late right now, whether or not I have Kupp or Kupp or Woods. So it doesn't really matter. But if it happens, it happens. If not, but it's definitely not a strategy that I'm trying to get, because you're stacking these guys with Jared Goff, which is not good.
Yeah, and we talked earlier, too, with Dave brought it up. There's the Tyler Higbee factor. There's the Gerald Everett factor as well. So it's not just necessarily those 3 receivers. It's fine if you want to do it. It could work out. Not sure it's a winning strategy. Like you said, Brian, if it happens, it happens. Second wideout in Pittsburgh. We've had several discussions about this ever since the season really was drawing to a close before it ended. Is it Deontay Johnson for you? I think that's the way FFPC owners have been going. Are you still a believer in James Washington as being the number 2 to Juju Smith-Schuster? Or do you think Pittsburgh brings somebody else in to play opposite Smith-Schuster this season as Ben Roethlisberger returns to play quarterback there? How are you handicapping the second wideout position for the Steelers?
Well, I think that Juju played a lot in the slot with Ben, I think. But so these two guys could definitely could definitely play. I actually like them both. I like them in best ball a lot. Now, as far as like a redraft, I'd have to really sit down and think about that, but not at this time. I really like both of those guys in best ball. They both pop games. They're both going to progress another year. The difference, though, is that right now you can get a much better value on Washington because he's going, I think, somewhere in the 17th, 18th round, while Deontay Johnson has an ADP of probably around 10 or 11 round. So, but Deontay Johnson, his rookie season reminded me of something similar in my mind to like Cortland Sutton's rookie year, and James Washington ended up having very similar numbers in the second year. So he has that third year wide receiver label that everybody likes too. So those guys are definitely people that I'm targeting at their current ADPs. I'll take both of them in a best ball and draft, and not necessarily, I don't know who will end up being the number 2. But I'll draft both of those guys according to value, however they may fall to me.
Hey, think about, Dave, what they did last year with Mason Rudolph as quarterback, and now you get Roethlisberger, and to get those guys as late as they're going right now, that's not a bad way to do it. And even if you get Juju Smith-Schuster early too.
How many games did Mason Rudolph play before you got? When did he get conked out?
You know what? Hold on. You know what? I actually have that in front of me.
I like to think of him getting hit in his face, and it's like his sourpuss face. That's where it's just like makes you think.
He missed 14 through 16 last year.
I laugh at that guy. Anyway,
was
it is
this
nice
from the Myles
back.
Garrett thing?
Yeah, it's just nice getting Big Ben back, having like a 280
competent.
pound 280 pound ogre at quarterback.
Did you see his beard, by the way?
Nice about Big Ben, man. The guy, he's like this, and then he'll fracture his leg or whatever, and then they'll put a stick on it, and the next week he'll play.
Right.
Anyway, I just enjoy Big Ben.
They showed
the
Steelers tweeted out a video of him throwing at kind of like half speed or whatever.
Yeah.
He's got a big, huge beard, and I know that I know I brought this up on the show before. I'll do it again. Sigmund Bloom was actually talking about quarterbacks on one of the Football Guys podcasts, and he said, sometimes you need it. We talk about cerebral quarterbacks and being able to beat, knowing what the defense is doing. But sometimes you need a quarterback that's like a Ben Roethlisberger who's and this is how he phrased it. He's like, you need a quarterback like a Ben Roethlisberger who's sort of like just like a grunt out there who just gets it done. Not that he's not cerebral. He's a smart guy, but you know what I mean. Just like an absolute brute out there, never goes down, keeps the play alive, and makes something happen.
He'll chuck it 60 times for like 550 yards in a shootout type game.
He has 2 of those games a year, minimum.
Now, granted, Antonio Brown's gone and gone off the deep end, so who knows what's going to happen. But I still think he's going to be all right. And like as Brian was kind of alluding to, Deontay Johnson or James Washington, maybe they don't take all of Antonio Brown's place, but as they mature, they are going to definitely start to really fill some of that role.
Absolutely. I'm totally with you.
All
on
right,
that.
Brian, you're still here, right?
Otherwise,
we're just going to talk.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Great.
All right. Yeah. Don't worry. We just get off on these tangents. Anyway, so here's the question. Miles Sanders has been going off at the 206 as the 11th running back off the board. Lots of early running backs going in FFPC best ball. You've been taking Miles Sanders in that mid-second, or are you looking at a wide receiver sometimes in that range?
I have taken him. I think I've taken him after the 2.6, which I think was probably pretty good value. But, he's going earlier and earlier, it seems. Now he's creeping up in the early second. There are a lot of running backs in that second round that I do like. So I've been just, for now, until things shake out, I've been rotating those second-round backs a bit, and there are a bunch of good ones like Jacobs and Eckler, Fournette, Sanders as well, included. But until later in the season, I'll really start to develop my targets and my fades. But Sanders, he is a great talent, though, and is going to start sneaking his way up, definitely, more towards the end of the first round as the season comes closer, I'm pretty sure. But one thing to mention is that, we're talking about best ball, is that it's still possible the Eagles continue using Boston Scott a little bit like they did down the stretch in that Darren Sproles role, which, it's kind of an inconsistent role, but for, how good Sanders is in the it's inconsistent because Sanders is going to be, he's great in the passing game, but he's a super cheap, best ball option right now to take a flyer on later, 13th, 14th, 15th round, whatever it is. I think he's, especially maybe I might have even stacked him up with Miles Sanders in the best ball, which I try not to do too much in best ball. It's because of the buys and the things like that. So, but Sanders definitely talented, and he could be a league winner. He could be one of those guys that turns into a league winner this year. And next year we're talking about drafting him in the top half of the first round, maybe. Who knows?
Brian, I should ask you this earlier because you will draft best balls no matter the time in drafting season. Why do you like to draft right now in January and February? We're coming up on March now. Is it because you can find a lot of pretty good value in these drafts? Have you had some success drafting this early, or is it just like, man, I don't have any NFL football going on right now. I got to get my football fixed. Why not do a draft? What's the attraction of drafting right now?
Well, it's kind of a mix of both. I think I'm sick in the head with this drafting. I really am, and I have to force myself not to draft. That's how bad it is. But I end up getting some good values this time of the year, though, so it does go hand in hand. But like last year, I believe at this time before the NFL Combine, I think I was getting Miles Sanders that we just spoke about in round 20, 21, 18, 19. I was just I like this talent, and sometimes you draft these rookies and things like that early based upon their skill set, but you don't really know what their opportunity is going to be. Like are they going to land on a team with Adam Gase and not play, even though you might be the best player at the position. So there's a lot of things, especially with the rookies, like I said, and their opportunity, but you can get those steals, and then all of a sudden you see Miles Sanders start to go in the, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round once it gets closer to the season last year. So I think that it is to get some value, but for the most part, I'm always trying to be competitive at something. I'm always trying to be better. I'm always analyzing, probably overanalyzing, and I'm just addicted to drafting.
Message from the chat room here. The mascot of the show, Two-Packer, wants to know Kenny Golladay going at the 2-3 turn. He is going at the 304 officially right now, Brian. Is that a spot you want as the 8th receiver off the board? I should bring that up. As the 8th receiver off the board at the 304, is that a good spot for him?
Yeah, Two-Packer likes to talk Kenny Golladay.
He does.
I hear you guys are good Twitter friends about Kenny Golladay.
Well, you don't have to be Twitter friends with him. Kenny Golladay is the mascot of Two-Packer.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I know. Kenny Golladay 101 no matter what. It's right, or somewhere in the top 5. No matter what. So no, just kidding. But no, last year, speaking of Kenny Golladay, he's a guy that like last year I had on 42% of my FFPC teams that I was taking. So I was pretty high on him last year. I thought I was getting him at a good price. So but yeah, that's funny.
That's a good market share. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm glad you guys got to work that out.
Thrilled. This is what we do. We're Switzerland on this show, bringing people together or something like that. Let's go to the emails here for you, Brian, that came in. First is from Lee in Manhattan. He writes, is now the time to draft Le'Veon Bell coming off one of the worst seasons of his career. Le'Veon Bell going in FFPC best balls right now. He's fallen to the 309. He is going as the 17th running back off the board. Wow, Dave, I'm just going to bring this up. Running backs 15, 16, and 17 this year, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell. How the mighty have fallen. All guys who are going in the first round within the last 2 years.
Well, Gordon took half the year off almost.
That is true, yeah. But specifically about Bell here, Brian, at the 309, is that a buying opportunity for Bell there, or would you still pass on him?
I don't know. I don't like Adam Gase. I don't like the situation. Le'Veon Bell's a tough call for me. I'm shying away from him. I think it could burn me. He could, bounce. I think that when he was in Pittsburgh, he had a superior, offensive line at all times. That scheme was just really good for his running style, and he did produce. He didn't give anybody those monster games though that you needed to win. He was like that. I'll get you that 15 every week or that 14 or whatever it was. I don't know, but I don't see the upside there with him anymore. I'd much rather take Melvin Gordon, even not even knowing where he's going right now. Because if he goes somewhere, it's going to be somewhere. I think he's definitely going to have a heck of a lot of opportunity. So, and a full season of Melvin Gordon for a guy who was also, going in the end of the first round when he was, not a holdout or not whatever. So, yeah, I would. I'm not going to go near Le'Veon Bell that much unless the value is just too much for me not to pass on him.
just to show you how much Brian knows about Le'Veon Bell scoring last year, he averaged 14.46 points a game. So right
dialed
between
in.
14 and 15.
Absolutely
nice.
dialed in. Yeah. This is we bring the heavy hitters on the show, Dave. We don't have the wusses. We bring in the real. And speaking of the real, we have another real question for you from Randy in Chicago here, Brian. He writes, are you bouncing off of Alshon Jeffrey? I'm not really seeing much upside in drafting him where he's going in FFPC drafts. And to illuminate by the way, thanks for the emails, both Lee and Randy on this one. Alshon Jeffrey in FFPC best balls, 1508 right now. I mean, that's super low. Wide receiver 59. I look at that. It's like, man, why not at that point? But given what his production's been, over the last year and a half, maybe that's why he is going that late. What about you, Brian? Are you getting on board with Alshon Jeffrey at that point?
You know what? He's one of those guys that's always there at that time, and I look at it and I go, nah, it's the Lisfranc. I think that's bothered me again with him. I'm pretty sure if I'm not mistaken, as far as the injuries with him go, and I just. Yeah, he's another guy. If he's healthy and he's on another team or a different situation, maybe, even though, Philly's not a bad spot from the beginning, but something to spark him, like that pretty good season he had in Chicago or something. But yeah, I'm not. I was never an Alshon Jeffrey fan. That's bad to say. I mean, I should be a fan of anybody that can produce on my team, as long as it makes sense. And but no, he's a guy. I'm also probably. I may have taken him once, just to diversify, maybe in these 9 or 10 drafts I've done so far, but that's about it. And it was definitely at a discount for sure.
Yeah, the latest update we got from Alshon Jeffrey from the Philadelphia Inquirer and Daily News, Howie Roseman this past Tuesday did not speak about Alshon Jeffrey's health or his future with the team. The quote we're getting there from Roseman, those are things that we're going to keep in-house, and we'll have honest conversations with all of our players. We're not going to get into timetables on injuries, but when you talk about Alshon, the most important thing for Alshon is getting him healthy as quickly as possible. You're right. It was a Lisfranc surgery, 30 years old. Man, I'm not seeing the upside there. 15th round, I get it. You want to diversify, like you said, here and there. That's cool, but I don't think he's going to be winning anybody any drafts this year, Dave. Are you on board with that?
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. Having said that, he is technically, I mean, you could argue Zach Ertz is number one target, but he is technically the number one receiver on an NFL team. And Alex was always a proponent of that.
The prognosticator.
Yeah, he would always, he'd say, oh, I got a number one receiver on an NFL team in the 11th round, which, there's something to be said for that.
There is, yeah. And he's number one for now. Well, this is such a deep crop of not crop. I don't want to say that.
Well,
such a deep
class.
Ahead,
but I have a comment after whatever you're about to say.
Deep class of receivers this year. Maybe Philly takes one or two, and it changes. And I think I said.
And a rookie almost never becomes the number one receiver over a veteran. So
he almost never does.
But go ahead.
But this is a 30-year-old dealing with Lisfranc. So I think we're not exactly speaking apples to apples. Maybe we're speaking Washington's the Honey Crisps in a best case scenario. I just look at it from the standpoint of again, this is a young man's game, and it's very difficult once you get into your 30s to keep competing at a high level. And when you've dealt with the injuries that Alshon Jeffrey's dealt with over the course of his career, there's a lot of red flags there. That said, 15th round.
He could still get even cut possibly, right? Or no?
Yeah, it's well, Alshon Jeffrey said that he's amenable to a change of scenery. So he could land somewhere else, too. Yeah. And if he lands somewhere else, maybe he's not the number one. Maybe he is. I don't know.
I mean, I guess when
it's the game we play.
Dealing with that injury, you're right. That's a good point.
It's tough. All right, Dave. Brian's been very gracious tonight with his time. Can we ask him one final question before we let him go and enjoy his weekend here?
All right, this is what we need. If you could please help us out. We're looking for someone who is being overdrafted in FFPC Best Ball League so far, and then someone who's been a favorite target of yours in the middle to late rounds in 2020.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think the Lamar Jackson is going way too early for my liking, and Mahomes for that matter as well. Those guys are going way too early. I mean, I'd like to have some shares of those guys, but they're just too expensive right now. And the rookie running backs, I think, that are going as high as the third round right now. I know obviously there's some there's some potential diamonds out there with DeAndre Swift and those guys and things like that. But you never know what their situation is going to be after the draft. You know, you could be the most talented player, then you get in a situation where you're in a committee, or you don't really see regular play until late in the season. So that really doesn't help you. I mean, I was a victim of some of that stuff. I mean, especially last year, like, for example, even if it was late, taking a Darwin Thompson or something like that, because he looked, he passed the eye test, but couldn't get on the field. But I'd like to, but as far as some of the targets of mine, other than those that I mentioned already, but I'm really trying to find players that are going to outperform their value. That I don't know who all of them are, yet for this year. It's kind of early. Those things kind of developed for me. But last year, like I said earlier, I took Golladay. I took him a little bit later, and I had quite a bit of him. This year at receiver, I think like a late round guy. Obviously later than Kenny Golladay was going last year, but like Hunter Renfrow is a guy who I see as like a poor man's Cooper Kupp. I think he has super potential if you look at even like the last couple of games that he played in last year. I really liked his stuff. Dave's guy, Andy Isabella, might come to surface. Maybe he's a real guy you can get super late. Definitely in best ball, he's going to pop some big ones, I think, this year. Tight end, last year I was huge on like Mark Andrews. I had him in 43% of my FFPC leagues when I looked it up. But this year, like I said, those guys I like. The Gesicki or Ian Thomas, those guys that take a shot on for that guy. Some, as far as tight end, you could get later. What else? At running back, I think, in the mid rounds, I like those non-starters. Mid to middle rounds that those non-starters that can be special. Like instead of taking some dud running back starter, like whoever's the starter in Houston, for example, or something at the time, like when it was Lamar Miller, I never liked him. Or let's say if it was Carlos Hyde or whatever, I'd always pass on those guys or try to and take an upside guy like, Alexander Madison or Tony Pollard this year. Those two kind of guys I like. And at quarterback, I would say, I try to take a steadier option, and then I also take like a sexier option with that usually in these drafts. Well, most of all my drafts, actually, I try to do that. Like last year, if I was, taking I don't know, an Aaron Rodgers or something, I'd also take like a Josh Allen or somebody with some upside on the other side. This year, I would say that upside guy. I don't know if it's him or not, but I've been taking a lot of Daniel Jones. So I've been taking him as my second or third, best ball quarterback in almost all these drafts I've done so far. Really, almost all of them. So hopefully he works out. I like the idea that he popped some pretty big games as a rookie. So for best ball, that's pretty promising. That's pretty much it. But things are constantly changing, and I'm always making adjustments, and I'm just trying to get better. Every year, and it's a tough game, and but it's my passion, and I'm just going to keep chugging along until I win all the money.
The challenge,
all the money.
The challenge is what makes it enjoyable. The all the money is the prize at the end of the road. And Brian, I want to thank you so much for popping on tonight. Appreciate all the insight that you've given us. Wish you best of luck in all your best ball leagues, all your leagues this year as well. Continued success, my man. And I know you got a best ball slim going on right now, so I'll let you check out what's going on in that.
Yes,
and let's get back to the combine.
Trial on the slim there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. The idea of not only not drafting the kickers or defenses, but also having 4 fewer roster spots after I usually take, say, 3 kickers, 3 defenses, and whatnot. If I did that, then I would, I'd really be going from 22 to 18 roster spots. So that is a little bit more challenging. Figuring at this time of year, I definitely like taking 3 quarterbacks in best ball at this time of year because you don't know the schedule yet for the NFL, so you don't want to be, just draft 2 quarterbacks right now and get stuck with the same bye. So I try to take 3 at this point in time, and later on in the season I could go 2, but sometimes I still end up taking 3. But in this draft, you almost have to go with 2 and just gamble. It's kind of early for that, so it's a little strategic, a little something different, but not too much different. But I am enjoying it so far. When these go live, I don't know if they're live yet, but as far as instead of slow, it'll be a pretty quick draft to do because I know sometimes I get tired at the end of these drafts when I got to get up in the morning. But it's always fun.
It is always fun. And it's always fun talking fantasy football, especially when you have a luminary like Brian Harris coming on. Follow him on Twitter at Brian_Harris_. Thanks so much for popping on tonight, dude. Really appreciate it. Good luck this season. Enjoy the drafts, and we'll talk again soon.
All righty. Take care, guys. Thanks.
Brian Harris, ladies and gentlemen, a career $100,000 winner in the FFPC best ball format, as well as all high-stakes fantasy football. We want to get to how the quarterbacks finished in 2019 and take a look at the position in 2020. Dave, before we do that, Wasp Guy checking in tonight. He wants to know, what do we do with running backs Kenyon Drake and Raheem Mostert in Dynasty? Draft pick equivalents to them as a metric? What would you do? Well, okay, so let's frame it like this. Let's break it down by...
To me, they're both worth, like, early second.
I have Raheem Mostert and Carrington. Do you have an early second-round pick there? Because I would...
Nope.
That's too bad.
Sure don't.
I've been trying to peddle him, and nobody's biting. It's like I'm fishing with an apple core. It's not good.
It's tough when they're free agents, and then you have semi-inactive owners, so you have like 6 guys or
right.
four guys that are paying attention.
Yeah.
And then 2 of those guys probably don't have the picks you want.
The problem is, as we get closer to the NFL draft, the picks become more valuable, and then it's know what I mean.
Yep.
And the issue is too, Dave, in that league, I am so running back, as David Hubbard would say, naked, and so I really need a player of his ilk to perform.
Why don't you just keep him then?
Well, because I don't know if he's going to do it again in 2020. His value might be as high as it's going to get right now.
Yeah, I mean, while that is true, I mean, for the purposes of your team winning, what good is like a 30% chance of 40% chance of a second rounder hitting versus a 50, 40%? I mean, 40% chance that maybe he ends up taking the running back. He's an older running back, as you said. I guess
for you, I think you.
He's just like high 20, like 27, 28 already.
Yeah, he's up there. He might even be older. I guess my issue is I think the disconnect we have is you feel his percentage of hitting in 2020 is higher than what I think his percentage is of hitting.
Well,
although we value the second round pick similarly.
I mean, if he hits in 2020, odds are he's going to just be a successful running back for the next few years.
If he hits in 2020, then I should not trade him, obviously. I just don't know if he's going to hit.
Yeah, well, that's part of the
That's part of the dynasty challenge, Dave.
It out. I mean, and good luck to you.
Kenyon Drake, we don't know where he's going to be playing, and you still give up early second round pick for him?
Yeah, early to mid, yeah.
No, now it's to mid.
Well, I'm early. I mean, you said what's he worth? He's worth it early. Yeah, I guess early to mid.
Two Packers says he's going to start charging me interest on his Carrington winnings. When did you say how you wanted him? I don't know if I'm supposed to mail a check or PayPal or what I'm supposed to do. I don't even know if he's paid for this year, by the way. So I have no idea what he's talking about there.
Well, did you ask him what he wanted?
I said when I totaled up the winnings every year at the season, I said, let me know how I can get your money to you.
Oh,
and I've paid out our coal burners, and I paid out Anarchy, and I don't know who else I need to pay out yet.
No, not me.
Really? I think you're paid for this year. Oh, no, you're partially paid, I think.
I don't know if I am or not, but I don't need to
You
get
had
paid
the high
out.
score of the year. I know that. So you ended up getting that.
So stupid.
Well, whatever. It's
My
stupid.
team sucks.
Hey, speaking of stupid, Dave, let's talk about the 2019 quarterback results. All right, so you have the list in front of you. I don't know if you saw that. It's
there's 8 names on it.
No. There's a sheet behind that. The sheet that you have on.
Oh, yeah.
That's everybody. So, but the names on your list are the names I wanted to focus on for the next 7 minutes here. All right. So this is how the quarterbacks finished in 2019. We're not going to talk about every player, but I wanted to center on a few.
All righty.
Jameis Winston finishes at number 2, the number 2 quarterback last year, Dave, and Tampa Bay doesn't even know if they want him as their guy. We saw tonight, apparently he not only played through a broken thumb, not only had to have eye surgery, but he also played through a torn meniscus last year. This all the while throwing to O.J. Howard, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and more. Now you look at Jameis Winston for Tampa Bay this year and how FFPC players are treating him. Sir Jameis is going at the 808 as the QB8. To me, the risk is worth the reward there, and I think I'd be on board with taking Jameis Winston there.
Yeah, it's worth a shot. He's going to be starting somewhere, for God's sake.
And throwing the ball all over the field. That's what's so great about him and Arians together, is they both love to do that.
He might, that LASIK actually might really make a difference. I mean, if he had, like, let's say 20/80 vision or something, he might actually throw fewer picks. I mean, talk about regression to the mean. He threw so many interceptions that I actually think he's going to regress to the mean of just throwing few interceptions. Usually people are always talking about it when going from great stat to mediocre stat. Well, can't you go from a sucky stat to a mediocre stat?
You absolutely can.
So I think that's one thing. He's going to regress back to being mediocre and, slightly worse than average, or maybe a little bit worse than average, instead of just being the most god-awful intercepting throwing quarterback on the planet.
Well, to that end, Dave, if he does regress back on interceptions, he's probably taking fewer chances. And if he's taking fewer chances, he was either number 1 or number 2 in the league in passing yardage. You'd think that's going to come down. He was number 2 in the league in touchdowns. That would probably come down. So while you're right, he's probably going to regress in interceptions. He might regress on those other counting stats as well.
I guess. I mean.
But in the 8th round, worth the risk is what we're saying.
That's it. Yes.
That's what I'm saying. You're agreeing with me. Moving on, Dak Prescott, number 4 this year. What a season he had last year. Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, both over 1,100 yards receiving. We'll see what happens with Jason Witten. Ezekiel Elliott was catching everything under the sun last year. And you look at how FFPC owners are treating him this year. It's a little bit different than last year, Dave, as he is now going as QB6 at the 7-11. I don't think I'm taking him there, especially given that, we don't really know what his contract situation is. I guess worst case scenario, they franchise him and he's still a Cowboys guy this coming year. But I don't know if I want to soak a 7th-round pick in a Dak Prescott.
Well, I think it's highly unlikely that he goes anywhere. I mean, his points weren't that far off of Jameis's, and his draft position is not much, further off than Jameis. He's a little bit more. He's a safer pick. Never been injured. The team actually still wants him, supposedly. They just have to figure out the dollar amount. And Gallup's locked in. Is Witten back? I would assume Witten's.
They don't know yet. They're in talks.
Yeah, and Elliott's there. So I mean, you have a really and the offensive line's good. So you have a pretty elite. The organization, is a good organization. I thought offense will be good. So I don't really mind Prescott that much in that spot. Although, again, it's a tad early for me to be taking a quarterback right when you get up to there. But
I said last year Josh Allen would be on a lot of my fantasy teams, and damn it, he was, and I loved it. The problem was I paired him with Lamar Jackson a lot, and I didn't really get to enjoy the benefits of Josh Allen because I was always playing Lamar Jackson. This year, Dave, he's going right behind Dak Prescott. Can you believe it? QB7 at the 802. I feel like with Allen, maybe I'm wrong here. Tell me I'm wrong if I am. But is the value in Josh Allen dissipated a little bit when you're using an early 8th-round pick into getting him on your squad, or is he still worth it there? QB7 is where he's going, and he finishes QB6 last year. And you got to believe Buffalo's going to bring in some more weapons for him.
Yeah, it's he was very consistent. I mean, with the rushing yardage, I mean, he was good. I mean, it's hard for me to argue against Josh Allen. This is only his 3rd year coming up, so he should be again a little bit better. And I regret about the weapons. So yeah, I'm fine with Josh Allen in that spot. I really, it's weird. I'm approving of all these picks.
I think it comes down to me, and I'm going to wrap. I have a statement that I'm going to make about all these quarterbacks when we get done. I want to move through this rapid fire style. Kyler Murray finished as QB9 last year. He's going as QB9 this year.
I thought he was going as QB4 this year, as of not long ago.
Oh, hold on, let me look it up then. Maybe I got it wrong.
2, 3,
oh no, you're right. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. QB4, 701. Too high?
Yes, I think that's too high.
Okay. He's going behind. He's going right ahead. Okay. Okay. Let's do this, Dave. This will be fun.
Dak Prescott.
You would rather have Prescott?
Yes.
Would you rather have Russell Wilson going at roughly the same spot?
Yeah, I'll have Russell Wilson.
Josh Allen at the 802, Kyler Murray at the 701.
It's getting closer, but I'd probably still take Josh Allen.
Would you skip taking Kyler Murray at the 701 if you were going to take Jameis Winston at the 808?
No, I would rather have Murray if Jesus left.
Okay.
Because I mean he's on the team. He's on a team.
Right. This guy won me I got 5 on it last year. Baker Mayfield finished as QB 17 last year. He's going as QB 16 this year. Dave, is there a buying opportunity here? If you're going to wait on quarterback, wouldn't it make sense to have Baker Mayfield part of a duo, or in your case, as you like to do in Kentucky, a trio of quarterbacks to work with here?
I'm guessing I'll find someone else in that type of area that I like better, but maybe not. I'm not sure who else.
I can tell you exactly he's going. There's a glut right in the end of the 9th, early 10th round. These are the 5 quarterbacks going there in order. Matthew Stafford, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Mayfield. and Ryan Tannehill?
Oh, yeah, I'd probably like other players. I mean, probably Goff. Daniel Jones, actually, that was a compelling case made by Brian, and I agree with him, actually, because as we said, Daniel Jones had some big games last year. Even Tannehill gets interesting, I guess, with A.J. Brown in his next season. So maybe Tannehill. Oh, there's some risk with Tannehill.
Here's the guy I like best out of that group, and it's the next player we're talking about. He finished as quarterback 29 last year, Dave. But on a per-game basis, he finished as, believe it or not, QB5 for fantasy points per game. Matthew Stafford, and he's going at the 909. Give me all the Stafford there. You got Kenny Golladay. You got Marvin Jones coming back from injury. It's going to be a banner year for that Detroit passing offense. It's probably going to add somebody else as well. I'll take Matthew Stafford there, man.
It's a good case. Good case to make. 25.9 fantasy points he scored last year.
Isn't that crazy?
Per game. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
It was awesome.
I really didn't realize that.
I didn't realize it until I was looking at this today. I'm like, oh, this has got to be wrong. My facts and figures must be wrong. I confirmed it with NASA. They said they were right. Final thing I want to bring. Well, no, two other quick points. Two guys that got hurt early last year that are going to be coming back this year. Who would you rather draft? Would you? And we know that the Panthers have announced that they're moving forward with Cam Newton. Are you moving forward with Cam Newton as your fantasy quarterback at the 11:01, Dave? Or would you rather have Ben Roethlisberger, who's going to 10-11, so basically in the same spot? Or is that the pairing this year, the Roethlisberger-Cam Newton pairing?
If you wait for a long time, that's not the worst.
I don't think that's a long time.
Well, in best ball, a lot of
I guess it is. Yeah, you're right.
It is,
yeah.
because they all get crushed in that little window.
Yeah. QB 19 and QB 21.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer Ben a little bit over Cam.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just
because he's like 7 years older.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Big Ben he's produced for a long period of time, but I've liked Cam too. So I mean, I'm just a little bit. Cam has not really come back off that injury. To me, he seems like he's wearing down because he's had so many rushing yards and so many hits over his career early on, and I just didn't. He didn't look right last year really at any point.
Okay.
And so with Big Ben, I'm not as concerned about that.
So for you, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Cam Newton's probably closer to being done than Ben Roethlisberger, huh?
I mean, I don't know as far as the career goes, but as far as this coming season goes, there's more risk that Cam just has a terrible year and just sucks. And he's never been the most accurate passer, as we know. I mean, Big Ben's always been way more accurate.
Right. What about the weapons? I mean, you have Cam Newton throwing to DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel, Ian Thomas. Pittsburgh has Vance McDonald, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, and Juju.
Yeah, I mean,
and Connor, I should bring up too.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the receivers and McCaffrey's like a whole other receiver are better for Cam. Again, if he's not on the field, it doesn't really matter. Right. I mean, so I don't know. To me, Cam is just.
You're down on Cam. Listen, you don't have to defend that.
I like his skill set. I always have, like I said, but I just don't know if he's back. I just don't know. And I don't want to take that risk when Big Ben is just sitting there.
He has Garoppolo's just sitting there as well. If you're talking about quarterbacks in that area, Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, Joe Burrow. You could have Tiny Hands Burrow instead of Cam Newton this year. Who would you rather have for best ball, Burrow or Cam Newton?
Cam.
Oh, okay.
I don't want Tiny Hands Burrow.
Speaking of Tiny Hands.
A one-year wonder.
Right. Okay, speaking of one-year wonder, is there this year's Lamar Jackson in FFPC this year as far as quarterbacks go? I feel like it was Patrick Mahomes in 2018. It was Lamar Jackson in 2019. That guy who goes in that 8th to 10th round area that sets the world on fire and ends up being a league winner. Is there anybody for you there this year?
I mean, the best candidate would be Kyler Murray. I don't.
He's going too high, right?
I also just don't see it. I mean, he didn't. It's possible, but it didn't seem like they were going to. If they're going to all of a sudden turn into the pistol offense, that's the one thing. The Ravens changed their offense and ran it around Lamar Jackson's rushing ability. They did rush. Murray did have more rushes later in the season, so maybe they're figuring that out a little bit. So he's the one, I guess, that if I had to pick anyone, even though I was saying I was kind of felt like he was being overdrafted, he's the one I would go with.
All right, I'm going to throw two names at you for potential Lamar Jackson.
Daniel Jones.
No, I was going to say Jones.
All right.
Tiny Hands Burrow. And the only reason I say him is because I feel like
I don't need it. It's fine.
A.J. Green could be back. They will probably add a couple of dynamic playmakers on offense to supplement Burrow, and you still have Mixon there.
Plus awesome Tyler Boyd.
And awesome Tyler Boyd. Is that his new nickname on the show? The ATB?
Yeah.
He's
pretty awesome.
And then you have in Baker Mayfield, obviously, Beckham, Landry, and Njoku if he's back, Nick Chubb. They'll probably add somebody else as well. I don't really have a good reason other than that for those guys, and none of them run as well as Lamar Jackson did. I guess Mahomes didn't run as well as Lamar Jackson did either. But I really can't see anybody else at this point. And I think the only reasons I'm saying those guys is because of the unknown a little bit. And Baker Mayfield, we kind of know. The only thing that's really changing for him this year is he gets a new head coach and a new offense, and other than that, it's kind of, he is who we thought he was. And we'll see if we let him off the hook.
Yeah, I don't know what was Baker Mayfield. Why did he have a bad year last year? I really didn't own him anywhere, so I didn't really watch enough of his games.
Right.
Why was he so bad?
I think a lot. Well, number one, I think Freddie Kitchens had too much on his plate. This is a guy who's never been a head coach anywhere before. He was an offensive coordinator for 1 year. Then he came in and tried to do both jobs, and just the cesspool that was going on in Cleveland, it was not good.
All right.
And I think he might have lost control of the team. Maybe he's just not as good as we think he is. I mean, there's that possibility as well. He put the ball in precarious positions several times last year, turned the ball over, not to the point where Jameis Winston's like, dude, you got to stop doing it, but to the point where it's like, okay, this is becoming a problem.
Right.
So he turned the ball over a lot, which stunted a lot of drives. I'm still on board with him, Mayfield as part of a trio or a duo in best ball. Because I think the possibility for him outperforming his draft spot is pretty good. I just don't know if he gets to be, he's going to be a top 10 guy this year.
I mean, he's 18.2 points, fantasy points a game last year at the quarterback position is really bad. Given that, in this day and age, this NFL where you're passing for, mega yards, 5,000 yard seasons are not out of the norm anymore. That's a really bad.
And he had the offensive line. He had the ground game. He had the weapons. He had everything there.
Right. I mean, as in his second season, just to go the other direction, to me, it's still inexplicable, even though he gave some fine explanations. I don't get it.
Joe Burrow or Baker Mayfield? Which one?
For what purpose?
Fantasy.
Okay, dynasty, redraft.
Redraft, sorry.
And you're talking best ball again?
Yeah.
I assume I'm going to go with Mayfield. I mean, even though he's...
You don't like Burrow.
Well, I mean, he's a rookie. I mean,
number one,
he's going to be a rookie on Cincy, and who knows? It's still whatever.
You don't care about the hands thing, right? The fact that he has small hands.
A little bit.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting.
I don't think it's all that interesting when players like Russell Wilson, who is a shrimpy short guy, has 10 plus inch, big mitts
and crushes it.
Yeah. So I mean, I do think hand size does matter. I mean, you're gripping a bigger ball, and he can joke around about it, but I think it matters to some extent. It does increase the bust possibility just a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Achilles Smith had 8-inch hands.
Did he really?
No, I don't know, but I know he busted.
What about David Klingler? What did David Klingler have?
He was the number one overall pick for Cincy at quarterback.
I don't think he was number one overall. He was top 2 or 3 because that was the McNabb draft, and I can't remember who went number 1 in that draft. We just saw we have the scouting combine here in the studio.
9 3/4 inches. He was fine.
There you go. We have the scouting combine going on in the studio, and we just saw an interview with Joe Burrow, and he's got that the close crop on the sides and on the back, and longer hair on top, as most of the kids do now. You know who he kind of looks like? Because he's got a ginormous forehead. He looks like Max Headroom. Remember Max Headroom? Looks a little. He's a lot like him.
Maybe, to be honest with you, maybe I don't really like his overall look and demeanor.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to be a little honest about that. Yeah.
You were right about Giovanni Bernard when you threw him under the table for his poor ass, and maybe there's something to be said for that. Maybe there's something to be said for selling jeans, Dave. Billy Bean says you shouldn't.
You know who else I don't really like his look and demeanor is that Justin guy from Oregon, the quarterback.
Oh, Justin Herbert.
Herbert?
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it, Herbert?
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like a surfer and kind of like and he's skinny. He's 6'6", like whatever, 238.
Yeah, he's huge.
And so he's tall, but he has this like nonchalance about him.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of who was the quarterback that got drafted by Arizona? Before Kyler Murray.
Josh Rosen.
Yeah, he reminds me a little of Josh Rosen's attitude a little bit.
Well, it's interesting.
He could care less that he's there.
Herbert, actually, there's been, and this was something this past season before draft season took over, that he wasn't the greatest leader, wasn't the greatest teammate at Oregon. So I can kind of see that.
Yeah, just like in the movie Draft Day.
He also rushed for 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin.
Oh, well, that's
Rushed
another reason
for
to
3
hate him.
touchdowns, yeah.
Well, nice job.
Final question of the night. We'll call it good. Joe Burrow 101 in a rookie super flex. Is that a mistake?
I think that's actually a good pick. I mean, even though you could take, let's say, Jonathan Taylor or something like that, if it's the quarterback that's going number 1 overall and it's super flex, to me that, unless for some reason you really don't like Joe Burrow because of his hands and or his demeanor, then maybe you could go a different direction.
You know what you do? Why don't you do this if you're Cincinnati? You got all these picks. You take Burrow 101, and then you trade up and get Justin Jefferson at the end of the first round. So bring his college
you have to trade up.
receiver. Yeah, you'd have to trade up. Justin Jefferson's going to go in the first round now. He had a great 40.
You just said the end of the first round, so they're at the 201. So that
yeah,
there's no chance he drops to the 201.
No, there's none. Right. Zero chance. 0.0.
What odds are you giving me on the?
All right, let's make it interesting. All right.
What's fair, since you have an opinion?
All right, let's do. I don't know what would be fair.
3-1.
I'll tell you what. I was going to say 5-1, so let's do 4-1.
4-1.
So I'll give you 4-1 odds that Justin Jefferson
for 5
is a first-round pick for 5.
All right,
and I got 5 on that.
I got 5 that he is. Well, I have 5 paying 20 that he is not.
I got 5 paying 20 on it.
I got 5 on it.
Oh, man.
I love Justin Jefferson of the Packers. That's going to do it for our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Brian Harris, Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob Rice, and, of course, each and every one of you. We will be back live next Friday at 10/9 Central. A 26er making an appearance on the show. It's 12:50, number 3 Dynasty champ Brent Studebaker, who's going to be our guest.
Make sure the chat room's working, all right?
All right, hopefully it will be at 10/9 Central next Friday. Remember, Jim Seipel is going to be on the High Stakes Lowdown next week. That will drop on RotoViz Thursday morning, bright and early, so make sure you're checking that out. That will be a great episode as well. Get in on that main event early bird. You can save $100 right now until June 1st. It's going to be the biggest prize pool the main event's ever had. Almost $4 million in there just waiting for you. MyFFPC.com is where to get in on that. Also, that's the place where you can try a Best Ball Slim. You can pick up a Dynasty Orphan today as well. Ton of options on there. Get registered for your leagues now. Celebrate the Scouting Combine by getting ready for Dynasty League. Your Combine weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
We're on the cement floor, even more so if we on tour. Me and E explore the country, wondering about the evening before. Trying to explain where the time went, while other rappers find a studio to grind in. Kinda like.
All right, so honestly, how much do you know about Justin Jefferson?
Not a ton.
Okay.
I know he's RotoViz loves him, I think, right? He's a wide receiver that checks all the boxes.
Why are you making this bet?
Well, 4-1's good odds.
He had like 111 catches last year, like 1,300 yards.
Had a great combine.
He had a great combine. The 40 was the surprise. People didn't think he was going to run as fast as he did.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So he could be a top 15 pick possibly. I mean, whatever. It's a $5 bet.
I think I think he's more likely to be a top 15 pick than to fall to the second round. But again, we talked about the wide receiver depth. All it takes is teams falling in love with other guys, and maybe he slips. So you could be right there.
It'll make it fun at late. Hopefully, as it gets later in there.
That would be a good point. And it's getting later here, so we got to end it. Talk to you next Friday.